What is up, Sloppers? Mr. E here with a little bit of talk about updates for the game, because I have been realizing lately that, man, we have been treated with some nice quality updates. In like the last 9 months or so, these updates have really been hitting different. Like, we had Havoc and the Ogren rework, plus the Mortis trials, and now we're getting a dog companion. Like, honestly, it feels like Darktide is hitting its stride. And part of me was wondering if that was just kind of like recency bias, or whatever the opposite of like nostalgia is for this game, where I kind of hate what I think the game used to be. Maybe it was better in the past, and I'm just kind of only focusing on the good stuff in the present. So I decided to make a tier list for all of the mainline updates, or at least what I'm considering a mainline update. It gets a little bit fuzzy back past about a year or so ago, maybe like a year and a half ago, because that was really just kind of when they were releasing updates as they had them. Up until about like June, like midway through last year, there wasn't this one update every quarter sort of setup. It was just kind of like you'd get like 3 updates in 3 months, and you wouldn't hear anything for 4 months, and that was what you got. So I picked the most important and the most fundamental changes to the game, and we're going to dive into them, and we're going to place them S through D. And I don't really feel like I need to explain what the rankings here mean. The higher you are, the better quality I think the update is. And this is purely subjective, so if you disagree, let me know down in the comments. Tell me what update you think is absolutely the best, and maybe I'm forgetting one entirely and leaving it off this list, and let me know which one you think sucked the most out of this. I have some hunches, but yeah, let me know down there, and like and subscribe. Okay, let's get into it. We've got the Signal update. This is the first real big update for the game. This was the first content drop, and this was pretty early on in the game's life cycle. Let's see, December 14th. Remember, the game launched on November 30th, 2022. So this was only 2 weeks in. We already got a new map and 2 new weapons, and the ability to refine weapons, so we could change one perk, a single perk on weapons. Woohoo! This was a kind of a cursed era for Darktide, right? Pre-crafting and all that stuff. So yeah, it was kind of torture, but this was a optimistic look for the game, because we got 2 weapons and a map, and it was really early on. We were like, oh my god, it's been 2 weeks and we're already getting this. That seemed like a nice progress for dev speed. However, I don't really love this map. This is the satellite dish map, Complex 154 or whatever it's called, and this map is kind of okay, and the weapons that came out with it are the Power Maul and the Crusher that you can see here. The Power Maul sucks and always has sucked for the Ogren, and the Crusher's just kind of like a mid weapon, outside of some niche builds. So I'm gonna give this one, which is called the Signal update, I'm gonna give this a C tier ranking for just being kind of underwhelming. Let's go on to, I believe the next one is called, yeah, there it is, Blessings of the Omnissiah. Okay, so what did we get with Blessings of Omnissiah? Blessings of Omnissiah gave us war gear sets, so you're able to actually have sets instead of just changing your gear every single time you wanted to change your loadout, which was wild. It also introduced the Brunt's Armory. This was a huge change. If you did not play back then, what was previously the case is that you had the like those offerings that are always there when you go to this commissar dude, where it's just like, here's some green weapons, here's some blue weapons, but they rotated every hour, and that was the only weapons that were available outside of rewards for missions, which weren't guaranteed for missions either. So yeah, you would spend like hours a day, or you would download like an app that could track what was actually on your store, so that you could log on and buy the thing with the right power level and all that stuff. It was, like I said earlier, it was truly cursed. Then they introduced this, and that kind of solved the whole problem, because as long as you had money, you could just buy weapons over and over and over again, hoping to get the one you want specifically, and that was much better. Also introduced some changes to these weekly contracts, and you could now change blessings on the weapons. And it looks like they also changed some stuff about the mission board. And oh, yep, here it is. You always get a weapon for completing missions, just general better itemization and stuff like that. Oh, and they added the emotes, which still boggles my mind. They have these emotes. These emotes are so, like, I don't know, like, they're not emotive enough. You know what I mean? Like, they barely move the character. Like, they should be really exaggerated for players to tell what they're actually doing. And you can only do them in the Morning Star, which is crazy to me. You should be able to do them in missions just for fun. Okay, so how do I feel about this one? This was, I mean, just on the metric of adding the armory alone, I bump it up quite a bit, but I just don't feel like this had any real content. So I'm gonna put this down here and see as well. There's no real content with this. It was just fixing the fact that, like, this itemization was so fucked right from the beginning. Then we come across the content drop Tools of War. So Tools of War comes with all of these new weapon marks. That was the main thing that was with this update. We got the Blaze Force swords. We got 2 new marks for the Bully Club, including the Mark III. We got a new mark for the Power Sword, a new mark for the Thunder Hammer, the Twin Leg Stubbers, combat shotguns. We got the Shock Troop Gauntlet came in with this one, Vent Purge with snipers, and then this was also the one that introduced the combo modifiers, because prior to this it was like, okay, you could get high intensity or low intensity, you could get darkness, you could get fog, but now this was introducing, fog with snipers, darkness with high intensity, that sort of stuff together. And they swapped around the layout of the Morningstar. It used to be that the place you would go for your weapons was over on the left side, and you would have to run past the premium shop, and players were like super pissed about that because they thought that that was like trying to subtly direct players to buy stuff from the shop. Maybe it was. But now it makes more sense because the shop for the weapons is over on the right side near where you forge them, and then all the cosmetic stuff is over on the left. So this is pretty much it, other than a few changes to the UI and some weapon balance things. How do I feel about getting these new weapon marks here and some new modifiers? Man, I really feel like I'm living in this C tier thing, but yeah, I'm gonna go with C tier yet again. I just don't feel like we're like offering anything new to the game. We're adding in like some additional weapon marks, I guess, but they're just marks. They're not new weapons, and there's no new maps, and the just the general like feel of WoW, like it still feels like we're playing catch up, which a lot of early Darktide is just playing catch up and getting to where it's decent. Okay, now we're getting to content drop Rejects Unite. So Rejects Unite introduced 2 new maps, all right? And that's not all, right? Archive Sycorax, everyone's favorite map because it's so easy. Ascension Rise of 31, which blows my mind that Ascension Rise of 31 came out back in May of 2023. Like, it feels like that is such a more recent release, but I am an old man and might die soon. That's how long I've been here. Then we had the release of the Chaos Spawn, which was teased in the teaser trailer for the game, but players were like, where is this thing? It took them 6 months to put it in. But we got the Chaos Spawn, we got some community events, we got the commissary that has these cosmetics for sale, but the cosmetics that are for sale have never been improved. That is kind of shitty. But back in the day, like, there weren't really that many premium cosmetics either, because the game had just come out 6 months ago, and there wasn't any other penance cosmetics. There's very few penance cosmetics, so these were a lot of cosmetics for the time. It's a shame they haven't really continued to iterate and improve upon this. And that's pretty much it. This update, though, 2 maps plus the Chaos Spawn, I gotta give this at least a B tier, right? 2 maps is really good. These are pretty decent maps, and you know, the Chaos Spawn, while it should have been in the game on launch, it adds a good amount of variety to the game. I feel like we'd be really excited as players for that these days, but I would expect more out of updates, you know, in this modern day era. We're into patch 12 with Into the Maelstrom. This obviously released Maelstrom missions. You know what Maelstrom missions are. They're this one right here in the center. They are the extra challenging version of missions. Remember, before Havoc, this was like the cream of the crop of challenges, and this was also, you know, like crazy difficulty for the time. Players didn't have this, like the monstrous missions were crazy where there was that many bosses. We didn't have the power creep that we have these days. So like some of these Maelstrom missions were absolutely insane for players to handle back in the day, back in the early eras. So this was actually a good level of challenge and honestly a good amount of variety compared to the regular missions. Now there was only one available to play at any given time, just like now, which kind of sucked. But you know, it's at least something new to play, because that was one of the main problems with early Darktide, is there wasn't really a diverse set of activities to do. Then there's also some changes to the shrine, the crafting station. We got the ability to craft any tier of perks onto the weapons, so you could add up to tier 4 of those first 2 perks, which was great because before it was all like random bullshit and you had to it was really annoying. But it still incorporated this system where you could only change 2 things per weapon. So if you got a really well-rolled weapon, what you'd be doing is upgrading it to orange and hoping and praying that 2 of the 4 things that roll on it, the 2 perks and the 2 blessings, would be the right ones, would be the perfect right ones, and then you could craft the last 2. And that was considered a win condition. That was crazy unlikely. But, you know, at least they allowed us to craft those 2 things. And the same thing applied to curios, which kind of made curios a lot easier to get the right things on, because there's only 3 modifiers on curios. And the last thing they did on this, which was well due for the time, because this was in like August or something, right? August 7th of 2023, was they made it so that all your characters share currency, so you don't start over like from scratch when you play a new character, which is good because, you know, players spent like a year playing their characters and they didn't want to start any new characters because they were flat broke on them. So yeah, having a shared wallet was a big deal here. Let's rank this bad boy into the Maelstrom. I feel like those Maelstrom missions are pretty fun. The changes to the crafting is good, and shared wallets is pretty good, but again, no mainline content. It just sort of feels like the only content we're getting out of this is the ability to play those Maelstrom missions. So yeah, it fixes crafting a little bit more, but we're still behind the ball on crafting, so I have to give it into the Maelstrom. You might be wondering, am I going to put anything in D tier? Oh yeah, I think that some of these are honestly deserving of D tier, but you know, these are good efforts here. Then we've got the class overhaul, guys. Class overhaul added talent trees to all the classes, as well as about a million other things. I mean, look at how long these patch notes are, right? They have to put all the patch notes for like literally everything in the world. Yes, I mean, this is the class overhaul on its face. S tier going up here is probably the single most revolutionary thing to have ever happened to Darktide, where they went away from the initial plans that they had back in early development, which was to have it just be like Vermintide 3 more or less, and have these like selections of 3 talents in 5 rows or 6 rows or whatever. And they trashed all that, and they said, you know what, we're going with a web talent tree instead. And that had been in sort of the plan to change it over since pretty late in development, before release even, so they were always planning on doing that. And finally we got it here, and this was in like October of 2023, so it took them almost a year, but this was really big for the game. Like, I cannot overstate how huge this was for the game. This changed up how the class is played, it changed the complete dynamics, it made like players super powerful comparatively, and the only thing that was kind of a flaw with it was that they released it because they felt like they were like kind of running out of time for the year, so they released it a little bit early without the veterans trees fully finished, which I appreciate them for doing it, because they probably saw the writing on the wall and were like, better to release it unfinished and show players that there actually is something that's coming to the game than just let them like suffer for another 2 months, which I can totally get behind. So I'm gonna give that S tier just because of how like revolutionary and pivotal that was to the game. Then we have Traitor Curse. So Traitor Curse is one of those interesting ones where it's split into 3 parts, kind of. We had Traitor Curse Part 1, Part 2, and the Orthos Offensive that all kind of go together. The Traitor Curse Part 1 introduces Mercantile HL 7004, and the carnival in general. HL 7004 is the one that ends with the big Coliseum fight at the end where you hold out in there, and they introduce Marksman's Focus, Focus Target, and Weapon Specialist for the veteran. You were able to inspect players in the lobby. They introduced new penances. Generally, this is I like this map a lot, and I like that they finished their work from before. I'll give this one a B tier, just because I like this map, and I feel like they're starting to get into the pace of things here. I'm also giving Traitor Curse Part 1 a little bit of a bump, just because it's part of the 3-part thing that I just talked about, right? Traitor Curse Part 1, Part 2, and Orthus Offensive all come out within a month of each other, and that gives them a little bit of extra value, right? That's a lot of content to be releasing in a short time frame. So even though this isn't as much content as, say, like Rejects Unite, which had 2 new maps, it is pretty sizable when you consider that the next update is only coming out within 2 weeks away, which is the Part 2. This one introduced the second of the, what are these called? This is the Carnival missions, right? Warren 619, Habzone, HL 70, this one ends with the going underground, where you go down and you break the little containment tanks for the goop and destroy the stim facilities. I like this mission a lot too. These missions, honestly, I really love the tile set for the Carnival. It's one of the most different feeling in the game, and it's always really beautiful to be there. The music also kills it. This also introduced stims, by the way. These maps introduced stims. That's another reason why I'm ranking them a little higher. We got chain weapons. We got the Assault Chain Axe, the Heavy Eviscerator. Wow. Oh no, these are just new marks. That's right. Yeah, but it's cool that there's new marks coming out with all this content. And oh, that's right, yeah, the new stub revolver, the good version of the heavy las pistol. Oh no, this is the worst version. My bad. The Mark 6 combat blade. Ooh, yeah, this is a good combat blade. And stims. Okay, so this one came out with the stims. This is actually really big, honestly. I'm giving this an A tier for sure. With all those additional weapon marks, plus a good map, plus stims, these stims are still a core part of the game. It's kind of crazy to think playing without them, right? Plus a bunch of weapon tweaks and changes, which is always good, keeping that stuff rotating around and keeping stuff relatively balanced, right? The other reason why I'm ranking these two pretty highly, actually, yeah, man, come on. I kind of want to move Traitor Curse up now that I'm thinking about it. The other thing that was going on with these two that was so cool was there was also the twin ambushes. So the Karnak twins could ambush you in missions, and that was one of the coolest things we'd experienced up to that point, right? The fact that these two super challenging, anime-style bosses would just come in and fuck with you out of nowhere. That was unlike anything we'd seen up to that point, and now we can go and tackle them with the Orthus Offensive. The Orthus Offensive had a short mission that kind of you chase them through a level. It told a little bit more of Zola's backstory and how she has some sort of link with them. Why is she so intent on chasing them? She's clearly compromised emotionally by whatever she's found out here, and then you face off against them and end up killing you think you kill both of them, even though you're supposed to capture them, but it turns out you only killed the brother, and Rinda has just barely survived and is saved. And this also has a secret hard mode, which is unlocked by hitting bells across the map. I think there's a lot of effort that went into this. I'm sad that it turned off the events for the Karnak twins. I kind of wish that continued to be a modifier for normal missions, but you know what, just on its own, since it rounds out the other two Traitor Curses, yeah, this update doesn't have a whole lot in its own right. It loses points for getting rid of the ambushes, but the fact that you have this new mission with a couple of cool fun challenges that you can do, I know some people still get enjoyment out of doing this. Joe does it all the time for her stream, so she must love doing it, right? So I'll give it a B tier just because it rounds out a nice little arc to the game. Then we got to get into Okay, so now we're into what I would consider more of the streamline of things, where from here on out, Darktide is going to start to have that pretty established one update per quarter pattern, which I think has been really successful for it. It seems like they get a good amount done within the quarter, and then they release it. Yeah, it leaves us with kind of dry spells, but the way that Darktide has been intended to be played, it's not supposed to be no-lifed like I do. It's supposed to be like you play for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you take a break for a few months, and you come back and there's new stuff. So this was the first in those updates, and I think it's probably the weakest. Path of Redemption. Path of Redemption added the Shrine Penitent Axe, and it adds penances, right? This is the pseudo battle pass with the penance track in it, where you get rewards for completing the penances. Honestly, I think it's a good idea. That, like, this is cool because it gives players, there's rewards like trinkets and actually like pretty decent looking cosmetics and stuff that are in that track, and it gives you something to do, like something to play for, like that. So that sort of meta stuff that keeps you playing the game is really like, you know, accomplishing penances is a really good motivator for a game like Darktide, because you enjoy playing the actual game, and then outside of it you have something else you're actually working for on a meta level. So that's nice. I don't know why these pictures aren't loading. I guess they've been redacted by the SCP Foundation. But the penances have been reworked and put into the system, and that, I think, it was a really good thing for the game. And then they added the Tox Bomber to the game, which, I don't know. I won't say it's a bad thing for the game. He's just such an annoying enemy. I'm sad that we haven't received more new enemies that are as impactful as the Tox Bomber is, but I'll give them points to the positive for it being a new enemy and having a significant impact. We also got the introduction of Martyr's Skulls, which was part of some of the penances, which could get you additional resources in every mission, Heretical Idols in every mission, which gave you plasteel. This was actually really big back in the day. Like, I was running low on plasteel for a long time. So yeah, these little idols gave you a lot of plasteel for finding them. And then we also had the introduction of Pox Gas. Now this is going to get you negative points for this update, Fat Shark, because fuck Pox Gas, seriously. I can't believe this stuff hasn't been overhauled. It's so obnoxious. If you're not going to overhaul it, at least remove it from the Havoc pool. It's so horrible to be playing Havoc and then have, oops, bop in the mic there, and then have this like just ruin your day. It's just, ugh, I hate playing around Pox Gas. It's one of the worst modifiers in the game, and that's saying something when there's one that just turns the lights off entirely. But we also got a little bit of a redo for Hab Draco. Hab Draco used to have just like a regular like scan the things at the end and around the little tree, and this one has a new mini game for the tree and some new like graphics and stuff, and it feels better. Honestly, Hab Drake is one of my favorite missions now, and I've always loved that little ending part. It's like one of the most intense extractions of any game. And they added new Maelstrom missions in, which are around the Pox Gas. They also added the ability to change your personality as well as your character name, which is huge. Before, you had to, you know, in order to change your height or like what your character's personality type was, you had to remake a whole new character, which sucked. You know, I wanted to do it for the longest time, but never got to. And then finally this came out, so that saved it. We also got titles, which came with penances. I mean, honestly, overall, like looking at the total quantity of stuff in this, yeah, it's not like the most like blow me away level of content or anything, but I think it's generally pretty good. I am going to give this a low A to high B tier. I'm gonna give it yeah, low A seems fair for it, because it is like giving some meta stuff that will help players to retain the game, a new enemy, right, adding that sort of stuff, even though there's not a whole lot of new content, and some quality of life features. So low A for this thing. You know, we're starting to get into the theme of things here, but wait, it's time for Skulls 2024. And now, do you remember what Skulls 2024 brought for us? Well, it brought Hestia's Decolation Crusade, which was an event just like we have for this year, which rewarded just the same thing that every event does. And so, yeah, I'm going to give this one a D tier. Like, this was supposed to be an update, and you can see if I scroll down here, people are literally saying, that's not everything, right? There's more that you're gonna talk about on the stream. That would be pretty bad, Lamau. Where's the rest? And then no responses. Yeah, so what was happening right now is that after this, what they were really working on was some bigger updates to come out later in the year, and then they ended up taking, just putting out Secrets of the Machine God. Players really wanted the crafting update, but Secrets of the Machine God would come out next, and they didn't give any information with this event about what Secrets of the Machine God was going to do. So it was really a disappointing year at Skulls. But yeah, finally we got Secrets of the Machine God next. This one is, warming up to where we are in the modern day, right? We had Clandestine Gloriana, one of the best maps. Fight me on it. I love the aesthetics of this map. I love the snow. I would be sad if they don't use the snow for other maps in the future because it's just so different looking than other stuff. We also got an event. Everyone loves these events with their plasteel and stuff. I guess new players might, but the new weapons were kind of big. So pickaxes were big, pun intended. We got the shock mauls, which suck and still suck. Double-barreled shotgun, which is fine, pretty cool, and bolt pistol, which is pretty good. So like lots of different weapons here and a good map. I think this solidly puts Secrets of the Machine God into the A tier. It's a different sort of A than Path of Redemption because it's just more content-wise. It's not really dealing with the overall game or fixing any systems. But don't worry, we're about to get to that because next up is Unlocked and Loaded, right? So this was hyped up for a while. This was the first update that they did after they got back from summer last year. So it took a while. It took until September of 2024 for them to get this out. So geez, that was quite a wait there. And September 25th, so like at the very end of September 2024. And this is huge though for the game, right? To have this itemization system finally fixed with new like modifiers for like the way to level weapons so that you progress your mastery and you unlock all this stuff. You don't have to worry about randomly rolling stuff anymore, really. Really impressive. It also introduced an in-game event that actually had something new to it, which was the Mobian 21st hordes, which would ultimately become part of Havoc, which is very nice. We got some new penances. Oh, this was one that, oh god, this introduced the cross weapons. So this is when dueling swords came to all the classes. Oh man, you could take that as a positive or negative, depending on who you are. And this introduced FSR, frame gen, which this fun fact, this is when I realized that for the first almost 2 years that I played the game, that my resolution was only set to 1920 by 1080 instead of being 2560 like my fucking monitor. So I was doing that for like 2 years. But yeah, this gave people like a lot better performance generally. And finally, it put out Rolling Steel, which Rolling Steel, honestly, I think this is a pretty good little snippet of a mission. It's kind of stale now, and it's sad because they said that they were interested in making Rolling Steel be part of a array of shorter missions like this, and I think they might have forgotten about that, or maybe it just didn't receive enough hype to the point where they were like, oh yeah, we should make shorter missions. So Rolling Steel might end up being the only mission of its type being super short. Oh, and of course the Party Finder, which is still useless today. So Unlocked and Loaded is going to get an S tier because it is the final nail in the coffin of old bad Darktide's like bad crafting system, and it's just such a good system now. It's so deterministic. It's based on your own progression, your own efforts. You get everything unlocked. It came out with a new little mini map that was different. It had some new mini games, and we had a pretty okay event. I mean, I think really the itemization just carried this update. And also the fact that they allowed you to cross-class with weapons, it was basically like releasing new weapons, right? Now that you could use recon lasguns on Zealot, but most importantly, those sweet dueling swords coming to everybody. So I'm gonna give it an S tier just because, man, this is just like the class overhaul. This saved the game. It really fixed the game. So now we're entering into what I want to consider the modern era of Darktide. So at this point, the game is fixed. And I believe I released a video back then saying, yay, Darktide is fixed. Like, finally we've got our unlocked and loaded in our hands. We can now progress. We can actually make new stuff come out. And to Fat Shark's credit, they have run with this. They've actually started printing new and interesting things for the game, iterating on the recipe, trying to come up with something new. And the first thing that they came out with was Grim Protocols update. So Grim Protocols comes out with quite a lot of content as compared to previous updates. And I think this is partially because they aren't scrambling to patch problems that the community is picking up anymore. Now it's just all about their own creative juices and focusing it on a target and going. So not only did we get the new Havoc game mode, which was a lot of content for players who played for a long time, we also got Dark Communion, which is maybe one of the best maps in the game. They've only gotten better over time at releasing maps. These maps all play really well, and I enjoy them a lot, and they're beautiful. And we got the two-handed Force Sword. We got the Relic Blade for the Zealot, and we got the Heavy Stubber for the Ogren. So, Veteran didn't get anything, but who plays Veteran anyway? But those three weapons are honestly all pretty dang good. And we got a special event, what trinket did it reward? Does it show? I don't know if it shows anywhere what trinket it is. But remember, with Havoc comes all this cool gear, frames. It's just generally like a really cool system that they added, even if you don't engage with it. Oh, that's what the curio was. Okay, so I don't even know if I have this. I've never used it. But yeah, the weapons also are super huge. Like, these weapons give me really big hope for the weapons for the Arbites class. Arbites? Arbites. And that's just because these weapons are so well designed. Like, they're really fun to play with. They're powerful but not overpowered, I want to say. They're pretty cool weapons. So yeah, this update here, for me, S tier for sure. Just Havoc was such a win for me personally because I liked the intensity of it. It wasn't the perfect refinement of Havoc, but hey, it was something to do. I've said many times on stream that if I was still having to play Auric Maelstroms as the hardest game mode, or like the content that we had in this game, I would have gone crazy by now because it's just not enough. It's just kind of weak sauce compared to what Havoc could do. And these weapons are cool, and the map is super cool too. So definite S tier there. And then we have the last update we've actually had so far, which is Nightmares and Visions. Maybe one of the most forgettable titles of any update. I tried to type it from memory, and I came up with Whispers and Secrets was what my brain typed in before I went and looked at the actual page to see that it said Nightmares and Visions. So, whoops. This one is huge as well. Mortis Trials, I think Mortis Trials is going to end up being like a teaser, an intro to a larger scale system coming later called Mortis Operations, but that's a time for another video. So Mortis Trials is actually honestly pretty fun. I know that a lot of like lower, like experienced players or like newer players play a lot of it because it's just like a clusterfuck and it's pretty engaging. For that, it doesn't take very long either. And there was a little event going on. We had Havoc Mode 2.0, which is so much better than Havoc 1.0. It's so much more intense. It really focuses on what Havoc should be about instead of just sliding and dodging bullets all the time. And the Ogren rework, which is just massive. The Ogren rework gives me tremendous hope for the release of Arbites because the Ogren's talent tree barring Point Blank Barrage, which I think still needs some changes, is just so good now. Ogryn is the most fun class to play because his talent tree is so good. Even though his weapons are really lame in comparison to the other classes' weapons, he has a lot of tools in his kit to work with that make it so that he can play a lot of different ways and be powerful and be fun and feel different. So I have a lot of hope for Arbites because Ogryn's rework was so good, and therefore Nightmares and Visions is going to get that S tier. And finally, I'm going to be ranking the Arbites update, the Arbites class coming out June 23rd. I don't know what the update will be called, but they have this fancy graphic here called Arbites, so I'm guessing that this is the name of the update, right? That's going to be the update name. It's going to be this class, new class, with the dog, with new abilities and all that stuff. You can customize the dog, yada, yada, yada. New weapons, bunch of new weapons coming out for him, as well as a redo of the storyline. So you're going to be like actually having kind of a connected story when you're progressing through the campaign, and you can re-experience it as a fully leveled character, or you can make a new character and go through it. I think that's going to be much better than what we have currently with no significant story. And time remains to be, time will tell, I suppose is the saying, how exactly this update shakes out. But you know what? I'm going to give it the S tier because new class, right? New class is perhaps the single biggest thing that gives me hope for Darktide, because that means that they are breaking the seal. Now that they have made a new class, they know how much effort it will take to make it, and if this sells well enough, we will, and I think it will, we will see more in the future. And I think that having more classes is probably the #1 way to make Darktide have more longevity and be more engaging, is just more ways to interact with the game. The other flip side of that coin is that they need to introduce new types of enemies and new challenges to go up against. But for right now, I think the biggest win would be the new classes. So I'm really excited for this because of what it might promise for the future, and so I have to give it the S tier just based on that alone, because I am so excited to sink my teeth into this thing. So there you go, guys. As I said earlier, I think that really after Unlocked and Loaded, we have been in the golden era right here. This is the golden era of Darktide is up here. In with these updates. Yeah, I'm gonna rasterize that fucking type. This is the golden era plus Unlocked and Loaded. Class Overhaul saved the game. This one, Class Overhaul and Unlocked and Loaded saved the game from death, basically. And then things like the Traitor Curse and Orthos Offensive, those guys kept us living through the dark times. And this cursed era down here, where we were just kind of getting updates whenever just to kind of keep the game afloat. Yeah, I'm so glad we are past that, because I think we have some really, really quality content to look forward to coming in the future for Darktide, and it makes me very optimistic. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe if you want more Darktide related content, and I'll see you next time.